They say some jobs come with danger, but few could have prepared Gene Deal for the life he found himself living. Once the trusted muscle for Diddy, he wasn't just guarding artists, he was guarding secrets. And when you're standing so close to power, the smallest misstep can put a target on your back. From the late 1990s in New York City, when Bad Boy Records was climbing to its peak, Gene saw deals, betrayals, and backstage conflicts most fans would never imagine. He watched alliances form and crumble, and he learned quickly that loyalty could be deadly if broken. But what really set Gene apart wasn't just what he witnessed, it was what he dared to reveal. After years of silence, his interviews in 2019 and resurfacing clips in 2023 show the chilling consequences of speaking out. Threats, intimidation, and near violent encounters weren't just rumors, they were part of a system designed to keep insiders like him in line. And yet, despite the fear, despite the shadow of danger constantly looming, Gene survived. But at what cost? His story isn't just about music, it's about survival, paranoia, and the price of knowing too much. Think you could survive being in Gene's shoes? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Let's see what you would have done in his place. Before the threats, before the intimidation, there was the world Gene Deal called home. The inner workings of Bad Boy Records in New York City, 1995. He wasn't just a bystander, he was muscle, protector, and witness to the empire as it grew. From late night studio sessions to high profile industry events, Gene saw the power dynamics that fueled the label's rise. He was there when arguments between artists nearly turned physical, and when deals were made behind closed doors that would shape the future of hip hop. But it wasn't just business, it was a delicate game of loyalty and fear. Everyone had a role, and everyone knew that stepping out of line could have consequences. Gene quickly realized that being close to Diddy meant seeing things no one else would, the whispered threats, the subtle power plays, and the constant undercurrent of danger. The lessons came fast. Watching people rise and fall within the empire taught him that survival required more than strength. It required knowing when to speak, when to stay silent, and when to get out of the way. And yet, even in this world, Gene's courage, or perhaps his curiosity, would eventually put him in the crosshairs, setting the stage for the threats and life changing encounters to come. Could you navigate a world where every friend could be a threat? Comment below with what you think Gene's toughest challenge was during his time inside Bad Boy. Once Gene stepped beyond the role of silent muscle, the world around him shifted. The whispers began first, text messages from unknown numbers, phone calls in the middle of the night, and encounters that left no doubt he was being watched. These weren't casual warnings, they were carefully calculated signals that someone wanted him to think twice before speaking. By 2018 in Brooklyn, New York, the threats escalated. Gene recalls seeing familiar faces from his bad boy days lurking near courthouses and public events, just close enough to be recognized, just far enough to avoid suspicion. It wasn't about secrecy, it was about pressure. Every glance over the shoulder, every unexpected call was a reminder that the world he had once been part of could turn deadly at a moment's notice. And yet, money was waived first, a tempting hush offer meant to quiet him. Gene didn't flinch. The cash didn't calm him. It only made it clear how far some would go to control the narrative. When bribes failed, the veiled threats became sharper, leaving no doubt that silence wasn't enough. They didn't just want compliance, they wanted control. If you were in Gene's position, would you take the money and stay silent or risk everything to speak the truth? Share your answer in the comments. It's a question that tests more than courage. By the time Gene Deal found himself facing court appearances, the danger had become almost tangible. In Brooklyn, 2018, what should have been routine legal proceedings turned into a psychological battlefield. Diddy's associates, according to Gene, seemed to appear just far enough away to avoid security, but close enough to send a message. No one is ever truly untouchable. Every step toward the courthouse felt like a gauntlet. Headlights followed him home at odd hours, strangers lingered too long on the sidewalks, and every conversation on the phone carried the weight of possible surveillance. Even surrounded by marshals and attorneys, Gene couldn't shake the feeling that someone was watching, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. The pressure wasn't just intimidation, it was a calculated strategy to make him falter. Every glance over the shoulder, every unexpected figure on the courthouse steps was designed to remind him that past loyalty could quickly become a liability. Gene began to understand that in this world, the line between performance and real danger was razor thin, and one wrong move could have catastrophic consequences. The danger surrounding Gene Deal wasn't limited to himself. As the trials and court cases progressed, he began noticing a chilling pattern: witnesses disappearing, changing their stories, or simply refusing to testify. It wasn't random. These weren't just nervous participants. Each vanishing act sent a message. Knowledge could be more dangerous than crime itself. By Los Angeles, 2020, the stakes had grown even higher. Key individuals who once had insider knowledge about Bad Boys' operations were suddenly unreachable. Attorneys couldn't make contact, subpoenas went unanswered, and rumors of intimidation circulated through the industry. Gene realized that he was part of a system designed not only to silence him, but to keep anyone who knew too much in line. Every missing witness tightened the web around him. The fear wasn't paranoia, it was strategy. It was a signal that those who held power could bend outcomes, erase voices, and control the narrative from the shadows. Gene's survival depended on understanding not just the threats aimed at him, but the invisible forces shaping who could speak and who would vanish. If you were in Gene's position, would you still speak out, knowing the risks, or stay silent to survive? Comment below with your thoughts. This is the kind of decision that defines lives. By the time Gene Deal faced the confrontations in Los Angeles, 2020, the threats were no longer just messages. They were real, in-person encounters that tested every instinct he had developed as Diddy's former muscle. At events connected to Bad Boy's business and social circles, Gene claims he found himself face to face with individuals who had once been allies, now seemingly turned into instruments of intimidation. One night, at a private industry gathering in Hollywood, Gene noticed familiar associates lingering too close, watching his every move. Even in crowded rooms, he felt the pressure. Every handshake, every nod carried an unspoken warning. These weren't idle threats. They were carefully orchestrated displays of power, designed to remind him that stepping out of line could have immediate consequences. The encounters weren't limited to public spaces. Reports suggest that even in semi-private settings, he was followed, watched, and sometimes cornered in moments meant to intimidate. Each episode left a lasting mark, both physically and psychologically, reinforcing the realization that the world he had been part of wasn't just competitive, it was lethal for anyone who dared to expose its secrets. The lessons were clear. Knowledge made him a target, courage made him a threat, and survival depended on constant vigilance. Gene's experiences in Los Angeles weren't just stories of fear. They were a harsh education in the real cost of loyalty and secrecy. The battles Gene Deal faced weren't just external, they left marks that no one could see. Years of being watched, threatened, and pressured transformed his life into a constant state of alert. Every trip outside, every phone call, and every interaction carried the weight of possible danger. The anxiety became a second skin, a reminder that the choices he had made could have lasting consequences. Even after stepping back from the front lines, Jean describes sleepless nights and a lingering sense of vulnerability. The paranoia wasn't irrational. Encounters in New York City in 2021 confirmed that the people he once trusted, or at least knew by sight, were still capable of influence and control. Memories of veiled threats, sudden disappearances of witnesses, and public confrontations replayed relentlessly, shaping a life that was never quite the same again. The psychological scars weren't just fear, they were a constant reminder of the blurred line between survival and exposure. For Gene, the cost of knowing too much wasn't just professional, it was personal, reshaping his trust, his relationships, and his perception of the world he had once navigated with confidence. Have you ever wondered what it would feel like to live under that kind of pressure? Comment below and share your thoughts. How far would you go to protect yourself when silence isn't an option? Years after the initial threats and close calls, Gene Deal's story began to resurface in ways that shook both fans and insiders alike. In 2019, a series of viral interviews brought him back into the spotlight, showing a man unafraid to share experiences that many had tried to bury. From these interviews, viewers got a glimpse of a world few had access to, the inner workings of Bad Boy Records, the behind-the-scenes maneuvering, and the threats that lingered long after the cameras stopped rolling. But the story didn't stop there. In 2023, as clips of Gene's earlier interviews resurfaced online, interest exploded again. Fans, journalists, and hip-hop historians alike began revisiting every detail, questioning the dynamics of loyalty, power, and control that shaped the 90s and beyond. Gene's accounts weren't just anecdotes, they were pieces of a larger puzzle, revealing patterns of intimidation, financial maneuvering, and carefully orchestrated silences that had protected powerful figures for decades. These resurfacing revelations didn't come without consequences. Gene has repeatedly hinted that speaking out put him back in danger, forcing him to remain vigilant even years after his public disclosures. Courthouses, social events, and even casual public encounters became reminders that the world he exposed could still reach him. His story raises difficult questions. How much power can someone truly exert from the shadows? And how far will an empire go to protect its secrets? Through interviews, court documents, and resurfaced clips, Gene paints a picture of a system built not only on fame and fortune, but on fear and loyalty enforced through intimidation. For viewers, the story is a reminder of how the music industry's glamorous exterior can conceal an underworld where survival depends on knowing what not to reveal and who can't be trusted. Do you think Gene Deal's revelations will inspire others to speak out, or has the fear of retaliation ensured silence? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Your perspective could spark the next discussion about this hidden side of hip-hop. Gene Deal's journey is a stark reminder that in the world of fame and power, knowing too much can make you a target. From his early days as Diddy's trusted muscle to the harrowing threats in Brooklyn, New York, 2018, the confrontations in Los Angeles, 2020, and the resurfacing of his story in New York City, 2021, every step of Gene's life has been shaped by the consequences of speaking out. He endured bribes that tried to silence him, veiled threats that tested his nerve, and the vanishing of witnesses that confirmed just how far some would go to protect secrets. The psychological toll was relentless, leaving him scarred in ways the public can barely imagine. Yet, despite all of it, Gene's decision to share his story revealed the inner workings of an empire built not just on music and wealth, but on fear, loyalty, and control. The resurfacing of his interviews in recent years shows that the story is far from over. Each revelation forces us to reconsider the narratives we've accepted, questioning the power structures behind the music industry and the hidden costs of silence. Gene Deal's experiences don't just expose the past, they shine a light on a system where the consequences of speaking truth can be as dangerous as the crimes themselves. The final question remains: is Diddy's empire untouchable, or is this just the beginning of accountability? Gene's story leaves us with more questions than answers, challenging everything we thought we knew about loyalty, power, and survival in the high-stakes world of hip-hop. What's your take? Was Gene Deal brave enough to expose the truth, or was he simply pushed into revealing secrets he couldn't keep? Comment below with your thoughts. If you want more deep dives into hip hop's hidden stories, hit like and subscribe to stay updated.